and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire and effervescent Evan Ginsberg. But tonight, I get to do the introduction. Normally, I pass that off to you, Evan, but since it's your first time meeting them, I will take reign on the intros. These are two folks that I couldn't get enough of. They're what I would consider a discovery of this show, and that is the up-and-coming star, wrestling female star in Northern California, Ellie D, and my managerial protege, but now also a ref. And we just talked about refs a couple of shows ago, and that's Lex Devine. So thank you very much, folks, for joining us. I know it's the last second edition, but it's always great to have you. And Ellie, why don't you? Well, first of all, I don't want to take everything away from you, but you were to sum everything up. The last time we had you on the show was just before your car accident, and you had the car accident, and you were out of commission for a little while.
I think you actually did have me on with Butch from Wrestling for Charity once since then.
Oh yeah, okay, you're right.
I distinctly remember podcast.
You're right. We did do a show. We did do a show post. But the accident had just happened, maybe like a couple of weeks before.
Yeah,
so,
I think, yeah.
So, and then you've triumphantly returned, and who had 100% faith and confidence that you would return back into the ring, even when you didn't have the confidence that you would get back in the ring. I knew you'd come back. I knew you'd come back. Why don't you tell us about that whole story and let fast forward Evan on everything we're talking about here.
Sure. So late August of 2024, last year, I had a really wonderful match at WAW in Orange County. And it was against Scarlett Rose, and I was really happy about it. I just debuted some new gear. I got to take my cousin to watch me wrestle in her hometown. And the next day, as I was driving back, I got run off the road by a pickup truck, and my car flipped over.
Wow.
And while it seemed like I was okay physically and mentally enough, like I was able to walk away on my own 2 feet, I actually went through the process of renting a car that same day and driving myself home from LA because I had so much merch and like gear that I'd packed and everything. I was not equipped to try to change my travel plan. But when the shock wore off and the adrenaline wore off, I realized that my back was in excruciating pain. And I had spinal compression on my sciatic nerve that made it really hard to walk, stand, sit, do anything without pain, really. And there was a big part of me that really thought, like, what if I'm never better enough? Like, what if my life now is hobbling around on a cane and doing commentary in my early 30s? Like, what if this is my life now? But you were right, Russell, buddy. You were right. And Ryan was right too. He was telling me that. Everybody was saying like, oh, you'll be fine. But I was like, but what if I'm not?
I didn't say that you'll be fine. I didn't say you'll be fine, but I said you'd be back.
That's,
that there's a difference there. I know that there's going to be damage there that'll always be there. But I also know that you have an indomitable spirit, and you don't deserve to be in wrestling. Wrestling deserves to have you in it. Okay? That's a big difference. The Northern California wrestling scene is not as good a scene if you aren't part of it. How do you like that as a statement? And I knew that the scene would beg to bring you back. That the scene would find a way to tempt you back in the ring. Because once you get in that ring and the people applaud for you or they boo for you the way you want them to, it's a drug you can't deny, and you'll keep coming back. So I don't want to make light of your rehab and how hard you worked to come back in the ring. It wasn't like, oh, well, you were fine and you just decided the accident was too scary and you just didn't want to get back in the ring again. No, you were really hurt and you really, really worked hard to get back to the ring. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about your rehab work to get back in?
Sure. Well, I'm very lucky, and I need to put over my incredible physical therapist, Ashley LeBlanc. She was just randomly assigned to me at Kaiser in Richmond, but from the very first moment I met her, she took me seriously as an athlete. She listened to me about my goals and my concerns, and everything we did was extremely functional for wrestling, as well as just quality of life and pain improvements. And she's really changed my life and changed the way I train. I'm not going to wrestling class 4 days a week anymore. I'm barely going, once or twice a month because my body can't take the bumps that it used to. I'm being really selective about how I train. And I've been doing things cross-functionally. I've relearned how to walk and run and lift. And I've found a really cool new cross-training avenue, which is called contact improvisation. And it's a type of dancing, but it's a very physical, improvisational, full contact, cooperative dance style, where you and a partner, and sometimes multiple partners, will use your weight and redistribute it across each other. So there's a lot of subtleties of movement, weight distribution, non-verbal communication that I've learned through this, that after having one match back after 10 months, I could really say has made a difference in my wrestling, because it didn't feel like I'd been out of the ring and hadn't had a match in 10 months. It felt like maybe I'd been out for 3 or 5 months, Definitely still rusty, but also definitely noticing that it felt different, that I felt better about pacing myself slower. I took more moments to perform to the crowd than I maybe would have 10 months ago. And just focusing on telling the story and putting over my strength as like my new style. So
God, I love to hear that. God, I love to hear that. You've learned so much in a year. It just like wrestlers go 10, 15 years before they learn the things that you just have told me right there. It's just amazing. Just amazing to me. Evan, do you have some questions for a guest? I don't want to hog us entirely.
I had a few thoughts that popped into my head. One, study Larry Zbyszko tapes, because Larry would stall and get the crowd, really riled up, and he didn't lock up for like 10 minutes. So
she's seen Sir Samurai do his shtick. He's a disciple of the Larry Zbyszko school. But continue, Evan.
Also, you might want to ask your therapist about Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. I practice all three, and I was just telling Russ, I was just saying I was out in 87-degree heat today with a 92-year-old woman who was doing hip rotations, kicks, balancing on one leg, 92 years old. And the 87-year-old Lita was friends with Bruce Lee. They were contemporaries. So I sincerely believe in it, and I see amazing things from, very, very old people who it's really, and you could actually, if you go on YouTube, you could pinpoint Tai Chi, Qigong for back injuries, etc. You really pinpoint it. So, and it's very light. It wouldn't hurt you. It would only help, or wouldn't help, but it wouldn't hurt you. So I'm just thinking out loud.
Now,
no, it sounds fabulous.
A couple weeks ago, we had Colin Hunter on, who made the video, which you need to see, by the way, Lex. I think you'd enjoy the hell out of it. It's called "The Ref Didn't See It."
Full-length documentary.
Yeah, it's an hour long and it's super well done. It's not available to the public for streaming, but we will totally promote it on the show when it's on something like Hulu or Tubi or something like that. It'll eventually make its way over to that format, and you've got to watch it. Now, Lex, last time I was working with you, you want to be a manager, but it sounds like you're doing more reffing these days. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, up and coming wrestlers never think that they need a manager. So
they all do.
Yeah, I know, but it's very hard to convince them of that. So at this point, I've had a few wrestlers say, "Yeah, like you could manage me," but then when I try to book dates with them, they're kind of being unreliable about it. So, I've been making my own way in the business instead and just supporting Ellie. And a lot of that consists of, I'll be at a show, and we were just at this show on Saturday that we mentioned. Great guy, West Ghost. He put on a benefit for Sir Samurai after his recent heart attack at the high school.
Woodland High School.
Woodland High School.
Collectible Stampede and SPW show. Great people.
They actually had a very nice gym. It wasn't overly hot, even though it was like 105 outside. But anyway.
Yeah, it was only 90 inside.
He had booked, anyway.
it was very hot.
It was toasty. But, it was better than even some of the outdoor shows we've done when the temperature is much better. Because not having the sun on you was worth a lot. And the bleachers were a pretty good setup for seating. Supportive crowd, a few hundred came out, I think. But yeah, the booker booked a really great lineup of talent, 9 matches, really good match variety, some interesting stipulation matches.
9 matches. How long did that show run?
It was
shockingly on time.
Tight. Yeah, they ran quite on time, and they were, what was it, about 4 hours total, maybe?
Yeah.
Still a lot for a 90-degree bell time. Yeah, I'll tell you that.
There was a 30-minute intermission also in there.
Yeah.
So they made some time for themselves. But so West Ghost hadn't thought about referees at all. He booked all this talent, but he didn't think about referees as he was doing it. Fortunately for him, Ellie brought me. Our good friend Sancho brought a referee from Oasis, referee Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 of the students, well, no, two of them were SPW students, and one of them was a BTW student. They were there just to sort of learn, and they also could referee because they were practicing. So we put together a ref crew, and 5 refs for 9 matches in that temperature is actually pretty good. Because you don't want to work all that much.
No, you don't. Absolutely. That would grind you into dust. I actually remember one time working with a ref where we made him in California Championship Wrestling, because one of the other refs in the show, he had to do 5 matches in a row. And the other guy finally showed up after 5 matches. I remember the poor guy coming back to the dressing room and throwing up. Because he was like a margin away from heat stroke. Wow. Because it was one of those like 90-degree bell time things. And he hadn't eaten because he was so broke. He just showed up. But again, he took the 3-hour drive out to Newman and basically wrecked himself almost into the grave because he just, people that we were talking about it 2 weeks ago, which is how incredibly physical being a ref actually is. People think that everybody's Bronco Lubitsch, but did you watch any Bronco Lubitsch footage? By the way, I told you to do that, so you know where there's a standard of how little energy you can possibly exert as a human being and still be in the ring. That Bronco Lubitsch as a ref was a living, he was basically a living corner post that was in the ring. You couldn't tell the difference between the corner post and Bronco Lubitsch, except that the corner post had turnbuckle pads on it. That's the only difference between those two guys, the two things out there. So, but if you're going to survive a 90-degree match, then maybe you have to apply that standard after all. Evan, do you have some questions for Lex?
Yeah, the other side of that is you could be indoors, there's no air conditioning, and the lights, the heat adds 10, 15 degrees to it. Because I've done heel managing, and I'm like, try not to die. It's so hot in here. And I'll tell you a funny story about heat. Real
Physical heat. Yeah.
Physical heat. Many years ago, Killer Kowalski and John Studd were the executioners in the WWF. And there was an old arena called Sunnyside Gardens. It's not there anymore. And they both were masked, and there was no air conditioning. And Kowalski at the time was like 50 years old. They went 2 out of 3 falls, 45 minutes. The crowd is like dying from the heat. He's in a mask, and he just kept coming like a machine. He had unbelievable cardio, Killer Kowalski. Anybody that really knows the history of wrestling, this guy could easily be on the Mount Rushmore of all-time great heels, easily in the top 10, no doubt. And I'll never forget that, because the crowd was trying to survive like the August heat and humidity, very humid in New York in the summer. And he's in the ring with a mask for 45 straight minutes. It was wild. I'll never forget it, 50 years later. Yeah.
People suffer for their art. So tell me, like, what was going through your mind when you got back in the ring for the first time in so many months?
Well, I will admit, first of all, that I've been having wrestling nightmares for weeks leading up to it. Like, I haven't gotten all my gear on, but I'm still expected to go to the ring. I haven't called the match, and my opponent says, let's just call it in the ring. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't do that right now. Like, there are so many moves I can't take. I need to communicate this beforehand, or I get there and I've been replaced, or all this anxiety surrounding that, because I've missed it, but I haven't missed the pressure I've put on myself. And, I thought I was a pretty secure, confident person, but I realized that I've let a lot of the, gossiping and drama and whatnot that goes along with any subculture community, any performance-based community kind of get to me. So having some time away and coming back, I was so scared that I was going to be swept up in that. But walking into that gymnasium and shaking everyone's hand and hugging people I hadn't seen in a while, including Sir Samurai, who was there looking healthy, I was just like, I'm so glad you're here. So, talking to my opponent through the match and everything, and just getting in. It was so hot that I did not want to be in gear until the last second, because the gear that I wore is my favorite gear that I've ever made. It's got long arm sleeves with tassels and leg warmers that cover my knee pads that also have like
but leg warmers are like the last thing you need on a 90-degree day.
With fringe, and then a singlet and the sports bra that matches, and all the makeup and a hat, and it was just like, I'm not getting into gimmick until the very last minute. Yeah, the hair extensions, I forgot about those. And the look is so important to me, so I really wanted to look nice and not.
I saw that outfit. It's fabulous.
Thank you. So there was a moment where I was just like in my regular training athleisure wear, and I had my shoes on for the first time in a long time. I was like feeling them out, like, okay, yeah, this is how I need to stand. This is how I need to balance in these. And I just started running the ropes, and I just started running corner to corner to like get a feel of how the ring felt. And it was a much bigger ring than I'm used to training at within. So I'm really glad I did that, because I do a lot of corner splashes, and it's so embarrassing if anybody's ever, oh, yep, that's me.
That's the reference.
That's great.
So
awesome outfit.
So let-
And you made that all yourself?
Not from the weekend, is it?
That's from this weekend, yeah.
Oh,
You took that.
sweet.
And I did make the whole thing, yeah.
That's
Everything but the
amazing.
hat. I bought the hat.
But it looks professional. I mean, it really looks like
Yeah.
it was made by, a professional company.
Yeah, Ellie is, she's better than most of the people who are making gear for people you see on TV. She won't say it, but she's
I don't believe it.
she's right there with the best of them.
Well, maybe that's a potential another stream of income.
So that's the thing, is nobody wants to pay what it's worth. She makes really good quality,
Yeah.
but so many people expect custom wrestling gear to basically cost the same as off-the-shelf activewear, and of course that's not going to be the case.
Well, there's a lot of places on the internet that sell, quote unquote custom stuff. But the problem is, you wear it one time in the ring and it falls apart. It's not sturdy or anything.
That's true.
It's endemic
And hers is
to fast fashion in general. Everybody wants new gear for every new occasion, so they go on Amazon, they go on Temu, and it breaks my heart.
Should really work. Yeah.
It breaks my heart because I think there is so much you can do with your gear, and when you invest in your gear and you take care of your gear, it will become part of your signature. And I've been iterating on mine for so long, and I've helped design and make gear for so many people who, like, now that they're busier and they can afford nicer stuff from like the actual pros that have like deadlines and contracts and stuff, like they've moved on from me. But like Brooke Havoc, I designed her first gear with the little shorts that crisscross in the front and the style of sports bra that she wears. All of her gear is still very consistent with that original design. It was like I helped her figure out what she would feel comfortable in, what she would feel powerful in, what would accentuate her body the way that she wanted it to. And then I made her 2 sets, and she's been getting other sets made, and she even made some herself. She got some off the rack white gear, and she wrote Havoc on it, which is, really good branding, but it's based on the Paramore album cover. And it's so perfect for her. And I saw it, I was just like, oh, I'm so proud of you.
I just add something. If James Brown used to say this, you want to look like a star. You don't want to look like somebody sitting in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And the right gear.
Somebody say that to Orange Cassidy, by the way. Someone tell Orange Cassidy that.
That's a whole
Orange
different.
Cassidy is an exception in my mind,
Oh,
but everybody
okay,
thinks they
but-
can be Orange Cassidy, and nobody can be Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, only one guy gets to be that guy.
Everyone's like, oh, I'll just come out like Stone Cold. And I'm like, you're not Stone Cold. Stop
No.
doing this.
Yeah,
You're
but-
not John Moxley.
Your stone room temperature, maybe, but
I mean, it's
So
so
Stone
cooked
Gravel.
into us.
Stone Cold famously just wore little black trunks mostly. And if people would just wear black trunks, that would honestly be better than what most wrestlers think looks good on them, which is cut-off jeans and a cut-off t-shirt. And it's like a band, it's not their shirt,
Yeah.
and it's just not anything special to them.
A lot of the wrestlers are interchangeable. They got the beard, they got the same tattoos, they got the same look. You don't know what their gimmick is. Johnny Valiant used to say to me, when you walk down the aisle, within 10 seconds, the fans should understand. He's the good cowboy, he's the bad cowboy. He's the good Indian, he's the bad Indian, and you can't tell because I'm a tweener and they got some elaborate story and the gear doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And you don't know who to root for. You don't know what's going on. I think with indies, they assume you've been to all the shows, which isn't the case. Sometimes you just happen to be at this indie and you don't know these guys, or male or female. And the gear is going to help you understand who this character is.
Yeah.
And if it looks like it's out of Temu or whatnot, it's not going to put them over.
We were just talking about this infamous failed theme park the other day. That had the same situation there, where they tried to have these ongoing storylines where you would need to show up multiple times over weeks to experience the story. But it's a huge theme park. Most people just go to a theme park once.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you want people to think that you are memorable enough. I was ambitiously trying to do some sort of Patreon exclusive. I was trying to start a Patreon where I would do gear oriented videos for wrestlers to improve their gear. Here's how you can modify things. Here's where you can buy things. Here are some basic sewing techniques, stuff like that, called Ellie DIY. I thought I was very clever.
That is cute.
It's a lot of work to do YouTube, and I do hate
Oh, really?
editing.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to do YouTube.
Yeah,
Tell
I
me
did.
something after I've
I
made
used
now.
to do it every week during the pandemic when I had nothing else to do, but now it's like no way. But I have these things that I've basically turned into a seminar that I'd really love to travel with. Once I'm like, fully ramped up again and traveling for wrestling, I would love to be able to sit down with the trainees of wherever I'm going for an hour and just like roundtable discussion. What are you guys wearing? How does that relate to your character? And I like to say that my superpower is I can tell you in 10 seconds 3 things to improve any wrestler's look. And I do mean any wrestler.
Gear therapy. That's what it really is. It's
Gear
like
therapy, yeah.
You're a gear therapist. Is what that
That's
really
a good
is.
hook. You're laughing. That's a good hook.
They say men will do anything but go to therapy. Well, it turns out wrestlers will do anything but go to gear therapy.
I believe it. Well, because they don't want to hear the truth, the ugly truth. And unfortunately, for a lot of wrestlers, like what they spend on gear is like the last thing they want to spend money on. Like everything else, they'll spend money on. But when it they'll buy the 80-gallon can of creatine, but they won't buy, new boots, even though the logo's falling off of the side and and it's all scratch, their trunks have holes in it or whatever. They don't want to spend money on it.
And make gradual improvements too. Like just looking at my gear that I wore this past weekend, for an example, the first time I wore it out was my last match before the accident. I made the leg warmers way too long, so I was tripping on them, and I just basically pulled them down by walking because I was treading on them, and I had maybe 3 times as long tassels fringe on my arms, and it was great in photos. I was like swinging my arm for a forearm and the tassels were flying everywhere. I loved the motion it added, but it also got caught in the ropes and caught on my opponent's gear and all this other stuff. So I was like, I really need to change this before I wear it again. And then the accident happened and I thought maybe I should never wear this again because I have this vivid, like visceral visual memory, that's a lot of V's, of picking it out of the dirt after it flew out of the back of my car, and the firefighters had to like excavate everything out of the trunk in order to get me to leave through the back of my car because that was the safest way out. And I just remember picking all of the pieces up out of the gravel and seeing them dirty, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to put it back on. I thought maybe that was like, okay, maybe we're retiring this gear. But no, I love this gear. Dang it, I love it.
It probably spoke to you. It probably spoke to you and said, you can't give me up like this. We're not going out like this.
So I like went over it. I washed it really thoroughly. I fixed up all the little holes that had formed in it from where I rushed through a couple of seams. I don't do well with deadlines, so finishing it up last time was not great. And then I cut the tassels much shorter. They did not get in the way at all this time. The arms feel very fixed. The legs, I think, still need some work. I might need to take them in a little bit because I really wanted that bell-bottom effect, but it definitely gets in the way and like tugs, and it's easy to trip over, which is great when you're taking a ton of face bumps, which I did. But
you don't want that to trigger at the wrong time.
Right.
And let me just say this, and I know you're happily married, so I'm not hitting on you, but I want to say you look absolutely fantastic. You've lost a lot of weight since I saw you last.
Actually incorrect. I have gained almost 20 pounds since you saw me last.
No, really?
Yes.
But your body looks like it's in such better shape.
That's
it really does.
Two things. That's two things. One, I think I've gained a lot of muscle. And two, that's how I design my gear. I am very intentional about the cut and the way that the seams fall to kind of snatch me in a little bit. So at Collectible Stampede this last weekend, the announcer came up to me and was like, "Hey, can I get your details?" I said, "Yeah, I'm from Richmond, California. Height is 6 feet tall, weight is 283 pounds, and I am actual size." And he was like, "Great." So when he actually announces me, he's like, from Richmond, California, weighing 203 pounds. I was like, who would believe that? Like, I'm starting
and
to
she
think.
so wanted them to bill her at her actual
my
weight.
actual weight, because I have a working, able body. My body is supporting me right now. I don't want to hide what I weigh. I know people who literally weigh a third of what I do, who are constantly down about their bodies because this is a very visual industry. But I'm not ashamed of being, the sassy fat wrestler. I think it's great, and I think what I'm able to do at my size is pretty amazing. So yeah, I want to look good, but it saddens me when somebody thinks that they need to protect me from my own reality. Like, they won't post as many pictures of my match because I have a double chin in them. And when I ask, like, "Hey, do you have any other pictures?" they say, "Oh, they weren't flattering." And I'm like,
But Ellie, you are not the sassy fat wrestler. You are the sassy wrestler who happens to be fat.
Sure.
Okay? There's a difference. Your weight doesn't define who you are. You define who you are. As you walk to the ring with your gear, the way you cut promos, the way you are on the mic, okay? You are your own thing, and your weight comes after, when people have already said to themselves, "That's a wrestler." God, I love that. I'm so proud of you. I'm serious about this. I'm not trying to just gush all over you on YouTube, but just, you've done everything that I was hoping you would do with your career, and you're putting it really to the grindstone and making it work. And it's gonna still be sucky for a while, but you're making the pathway that I think is going to lead to a lifetime of you being involved in wrestling. I love it. Evan.
Yeah. I get these light bulbs. What I think you should.
And then they get smashed over your head, right?
That's not the tube thing, right?
I hate that. Light tube.
How do you get that in your eye? Oh.
Oof.
I think you should consider doing a documentary or a series about your rehabilitation and everything you've been through and everything you're going through. I think it's a great human interest story. And just listening to you tonight for the first time, you're very well spoken, which isn't always the case in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So I think you should consider it's a different way to get attention, and you have an interesting story to tell, because it's basically a tale of inches. If the car went a few inches this way, you could have died. A few inches that way, you could have been paralyzed. It's quite a story, and the comeback.
Almost as much of a story there is the decision to get back in the ring. To me, it took so much courage to do what you're doing. It took so much guts and so much drive to do it. It would have been easy to just say, "I give up," and to just say, "I can't do it." I mean, the amount of work that you have to do to give up on something is zero, right? The amount to get back in the ring like you did is a million. or a trillion or a gazillion. I can't even look. I've had to work my broken shoulder back into place. Look at this. Look at this. I couldn't lift my arm more than like this for a year. And now I can do this. Some freaking miracle. You know how much time and rehab I'm doing? And I'm also enrolled in Qigong. I've been taking that for a couple months now because of Evan really convinced me it was the right thing to do. And I found someone that does very gentle Qigong for seniors. I can't take a real martial artist to like push me through the things and make sure my form is absolutely black belt level perfect. I don't have that in me. She's super gentle. She's like, if you can't lift your arm up all the way, lift it as high up as you can. If you can't get the form right, try to make it as close as you can. Because some of those animal forms, Evan, you're familiar with it, they can be pains in the butt. They're like trying to get the motion coordinated for Qigong.
I'm doing it for years. I'm far from perfect. But you could even do a GoFundMe to shoot a pilot. Just do one episode that pretty much covers the story and see how far you could take it from there.
I think it's a very inspirational story. So I'm with Evan. If you got, obviously everyone will make suggestions, and finding the time to actually do it is obviously, easier said than done. But it's a story I don't think you want to just brush under the carpet and just think, oh, well, everyone just knows about it and it's no big deal. It's a big deal to us.
And also, as a married couple who are involved in wrestling, that's an interesting, that's the next story that's part of it all. And, looks are deceiving. I mean, if I saw you two in a supermarket, the first thing I wouldn't think is wrestling, and I'm around wrestling all the time, So, no, really. So I think there's a lot of human interest here, and you could do something with it because wrestling's a tough business, and to make it, let's say, to WWE or AEW is always a long shot, and a good film or something could really do, the right documentary is really put people on the map. It's something to consider, seriously.
Well, in all seriousness, I have been keeping a journal since my very first day of training. I kept a journal.
Video?
No.
Written.
No, written. And I've thought about trying to edit it and turn it into maybe a memoir or something.
Someone knows something about books. Somebody knows something about books, Evan.
A lot of it is just like, okay, day 54, I still can't do this, I still can't do that, I was feeling really sad, I cried in the locker room, like it's a lot of repetition, it's a lot of TMI, and I've been criticized also for giving away too much of the business by trainers.
Mick Foley already beat you to that.
So I've made it a more like personal internal thing, when I meet one of my
Mick Foley already did all of that decades ago. So you can't expose the business in a way that hasn't already been exposed. So I wouldn't worry about that part of it. Maybe you don't name everybody's names necessarily, but I think you could say the truth about your situation and no one would take you aside and say, oh, we won't want to book Ellie because she wrote, something in her memoirs about breaking kayfabe.
I've been blacklisted for less, but what I've come to realize is that
who has blacklisted you? Seriously.
I'm seriously. There are promotions that will no longer work with me because I tried to start something somewhere else, or because I had to step away from that other thing somewhere else. Like,
yeah, that's that kind of territorial shit. That's that kind of territorial shit that you're better off without those promotions.
I realized that, I used to have these dreams of going on AEW or WWE or Impact or whatever, and I would like fantasize about how cool it would be to see somebody like myself on TV and how that could change the world and stuff. But the reality is, I'm not sure I'm at a place in my life where I would want to prioritize that. Like, I like my life. I like being somebody for whom pro wrestling is an obsessive hobby. I do want to do this for the rest of my life, and part of that
I
means
want to put
not
you on
like,
TV. I want to
okay,
put you on TV. That's why you're here on this talk show,
but
because I can't get enough of you.
I just want little girls. I just want little girls in the audience to see somebody who is hyper feminine and friendly and bubbly and confident in her own skin and think, maybe I should start doing this. That's all I want. And you see those kids at the Wrestling for Charity shows, you see them at Collectible Stampede, at SPW, East Bay Pro, Oasis Pro. Like,
some of them are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
There are
but
a few of them in every audience.
Unless you're at Hood Slam or maybe West Coast Pro, like I just want to be where the kids are. I want to put on fun, goofy things. I want to help produce shows and write shows again. I want the chance and the budget to like produce an entire themed show where I have control of the costumes and people just get given gimmicks that I get to help them execute. Like, that's the dream now. I want to keep telling stories. It's not about like fame or reach or whatever anymore. It's just about like having fun, doing what I love, collaborating with amazing people. Collaborating with my own husband is a big part of that. Like,
so you heard it here first. We're gonna keep producing wrestling.
We are. We're kind of like in the very early stages of working towards doing that again, because my personal philosophy is I want to wrestle a hilarious 5 to 10 minute match once a weekend if I could. And that would be so amazing. And if I can get to that point, then why not have that be the opening match of a show that I then help produce? Or like, something like that. Just like give myself a little something to do that reminds me that I'm a wrestler, that I can do this. After my match this last weekend, I was like lying on my back, having just been pinned. Beatrice Domino wins and becomes the first ever Collectible Stampede Women's Champion. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, I did it. I wrestled. I just need that feeling every week if I can get it. And then I'll be happy. And that's really the goal now. Just
I
like
felt the same way about getting back and managing.
Visualize the life you really want and do it.
But when you want to do your journal and turn it into a book, you need to consult with Evan because he knows all about what it takes to make a book now. He is wrestling blackboard and movie sets, wrestling rings, right?
Yeah.
Blackboards and movie sets is the cover that he's got behind him, and you went through quite a bit of an ordeal to get that done, and you took it into your own hands, and now it was one of the top wrestling books on Amazon for a little while.
It was number one for like 2 or 3 weeks, and we tell the story of the making of The Wrestler when the Wrestler came out in 2008, but it was a 7-year process. So I talk a lot about what went into making that. And follow your muse. You never know how far you could take something. And, The Wrestler took 7 years. We did 350 days. That took 6 years. And, the journal that you have now could be a great book or a great series or a great documentary. It's how, to do something great and not just pump out content. It takes time and real thought. But I have a feeling that you guys could pull it off. And having a supportive partner is half the battle. Because
that's true.
You guys have the same vision. And let me add this. I have friends who are stand-up comedians. They need to be standing up doing comedy. I have friends who are teachers. They need to be teaching. I have friends who are wrestlers. They need to be wrestling. We're doing a GoFundMe right now for Chris Michaels. He's 63 years old. He's still wrestling. The guy was in WWE. Early ECW, Eddie Gilbert was booking. He was tag champs with Chris Candido back before Heyman. So this guy's been out there for like 30, 40 years and still needs to wrestle, still needs to be out there. So if wrestling is what you need to feel fully alive, then pursue it. And everything.
Maybe it was a situation where you didn't know how much it meant to you until you had to take the time off, and then you really saw what life was like if you take that out of it. It's the kind of thing that you don't realize how much of a part of your life it is. I mean, that's the way it was for me too, when like APW went out of business and I was out for a little while until Pro Wrestling Iron came in. I was a man without a Fed. And then, Pro Wrestling Iron went out of business. And then CCW came in just a few months later after that. And, and then CCW went out of business and Wrestling for Charity, started picking up. So I've never really had more than like 2 or 3 months off from wrestling since 2000. And so, it finds a way to find you, even when you're not necessarily looking for it, because you've got a good reputation. I mean, granted, there's those idiots who blacklisted you or whatever, but everybody else knows about you. In fact, I wanted to ask you about the Pride show that you did and what that was all about and your experience with that.
The Pride show?
Yeah, the Pride show that you just did.
Oh, it wasn't a Pride show. It was just my Pride look at the Collectible Stampede show.
Okay.
I made a Pride show because
she was ripping the rainbows.
And I made the costume last year thinking that I would be booked at a Pride show. But June was a weird time in my wrestling journey. I had a lot of falling outs with some people, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of hurt feelings. And so I just kind of sat on it, and I didn't train for a while because I was really depressed about it. And then actually in August, when I had that one match right before my accident, I hadn't really trained or been in the ring for 3 months. And I took on this booking thinking like, oh, well, it's way out there. I'll get to see my family. Like, it's not going to cost me anything. How bad could it be? Little did I know about the, replacing a car thing. But after that match, I was just like laying on my back in the jiu-jitsu gym locker room where we just performed, just like panting and blown up and out of shape. And I just cried a lot because I was like, wow, I need to find a way to keep doing this. Like, even 3 months away, even in a room where nobody knows who I am, that there's nothing that feels this good. There's nothing that feels this affirming. And I just want to do it wherever I can. And that's always been the goal. I'd love to work with anybody in the Bay Area, farther afield.
And we have you booked for Wrestling for Charity. We have you booked.
At least two dates. I know that Sailor Mask is due to fight Boyce Legrand and Anthony Nova in a triple threat at the next Tacos Blue Demon show, but the permits for that have been difficult because the last one was such a huge success. So that's a great problem to have. And then I know that there's some in August, the 23rd and 24th, or 24th and 25th, right back to back, and I'm planning to be at both of those. And
I think you're slated to take on Ava Potter, aren't you?
I think so, yeah.
That's going to be that. I'm definitely going to be there for that match because I want to see that. She's also a star we've discovered on this show, and that's going to be her first West Coast booking as AIWF champion. So looking forward to that so much. Evan, you have any other questions for our guest tonight?
What's your proudest moment in wrestling?
Proudest moment in wrestling. I want to say just like the easy thing is, I got back in the ring this past weekend. But I actually think really looking at everything I've done, I really feel proud of the work I did with Izzy McQueen at the Folsom Street Fair a couple of years ago. We had a softcore match, and I would love for there to be a softcore title because I thought the format was so fun. We beat each other up with pool noodles and feather boas and stuffed animals.
It's different.
And I'm scared of blood, so hardcore is not, the best format for me, but I love the storytelling, I love the intensity, and I love the creativity. So it was like a really cool thing to do, to translate that into something that I could do. And I just love rewatching that match and seeing the crowd go crazy over the weird things we did and getting a chant, "She's softcore, she's softcore," was pretty awesome.
I have one last question. This has been bothering me the entire hour. Right by your shoulder, it says boycott. What are you boycotting? I have no idea.
Yeah. It says boycott Mitsubishi.
Boycott Mitsubishi.
Why, pray tell? What did they do?
These are some ancient bumper stickers.
So my dad used to work over 30 years in the radio broadcasting industry in the Bay Area as an engineer. He worked at KUSF, which is also my alma mater, USF. I was on the radio there. I had a very short time as a DJ. It was really, really fun. But when they closed the radio station and they moved the facilities, they got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. And this was one of the more interesting looking cabinets that was available. My dad just took it and he gave it to me, and he's like, "You'll put some sewing stuff in there or whatever." And so this actually has all sorts of interesting stuff: Earth Island Institute, Greenpeace, and then I've put some magnets on it, including my own wrestling magnets.
There's a dolphin-shaped
one on the Save the Dolphins.
It says Save the Dolphins.
And then it's got all of my sewing patterns organized in it. So this entire top shelf is actually just the ones that I've drafted myself for myself and my wrestling friends. So
maybe we could get Mitsubishi to save the dolphins. They have the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll build them into their next car. And then I just wanted to say that you folks and Evan have something else in common, and that Evan is a brand new or relatively new pet parent of 2 cats that he adopted, and you guys are big cat folks that I know from being on video. I'm surprised they haven't found their way into the video. They usually do.
We've
They're
been
actually
trying to
all
coax
around.
them.
We've been trying to get them to jump on our laps so we can show them to you.
Yeah, we always love having them. Do you have any advice that you would like to give Evan as a relatively new pet parent?
Watch the Kitten Lady.
On
great video
YouTube.
series on YouTube about kitten fostering.
They hung. They have cats. My wife is here. She's playing with the cats as we speak.
Well, they've all been coming to ask for dinner because 8 p.m. is usually the latest we feed them. So we'll see if we can get one of them wrangled for a cameo. Oh, there she is, my kitten wrestler.
Oh. Looks a little like
biting your finger to tell you you waited too long to feed him, I guess.
She doesn't have any teeth, so her bites are not that dangerous.
Yeah, she's our old lady. Her bark's much worse than her bite, but she's the easiest to grab.
Our cats are only 1 year old. They were living under a car in a garage. It was a mom and 10 siblings, and one of the cats was sleeping in a car, speaking of bad car stories, and the driver turns the car on and ripped off part of the tail of one of the siblings. Yeah. So the garage owner is my wife's girlfriend's friend, my wife's girlfriend's husband, and they were just begging us, please, we got 10 cats, 11 cats, and please take as many as you can. And we just have a 1-bedroom apartment, so we took two. We took 2, a brother and a sister. And I just want to throw this out there since we're talking about it. They will enrich your life. I mean, I love these cats with all my heart. They're like kids to us. And when I'm just petting one of these cats, it's almost like meditation. You're so relaxed. They're relaxed. And they run to the door like a dog to greet you, and they're excited. And you know, it's a beautiful thing, really. And I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner. It just I'm in a co-op. They won't allow dogs, and I always thought of myself as a dog person, but now that I have cats, I understand. You know, great, like family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but do you have any advice to give Evan as a relatively new cat owner?
You're probably best off stopping at 2. We have 4. We didn't set out to have 4.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And if you've got 1 bedroom to work with, 2 cats, 1 bedroom is like
plenty, yeah.
perfect.
That's great. So we're almost at the end of the hour here. You know, it goes by so fast with you guys. It's really, we don't spend enough time in between shows talking to each other. So, you know, really appreciate the hour that you can spend with us. Why don't you tell everybody, first of all, what your next big show is going to be, and then give us all your social media stuff so that people can get in contact with you.
Well, my social media that I'm most active on is Instagram at Ellie Delightful. It's a pun. Some people just call me that now. It's kind of fun. All of my bookings right now in the pipeline are with Wrestling for Charity. So if you're following Wrestling for Charity, they will have the most up-to-date calendar and location.
Oh, I'll be talking about it. Don't worry about that. Don't worry your pretty little head about that. I'll be talking about the Wrestling for Charity shows. I'm managing on a couple of them. So yeah, they people won't have a choice but to hear about your upcoming shows.
In that case, I think you'll have me covered there.
That is great. Evan, do you want to give a plug for your book?
Sure. Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets available on Amazon. And I'm promoting July 12th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pals for Pudgy. It's a fundraiser for Chris Michaels and his dog Pudgy. Chris Michaels, great wrestler, buddy of mine, just got hit with a $7,000 plus vet bill. And
but you guys are close to reaching your goal of helping, which is good.
Yeah, we're at around 2,500 after a week. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Wow.
So 30 days for GoFundMe. You can check it out. Pals for Pudgy, GoFundMe. This guy, he's going to be 64 next month, and guy's up at the crack of dawn working 5, 6, 12-hour days a week. So one scumbag on Facebook said, "You're begging." Guy's never asked for anything in his life. I mean, what's plan B? Put your dog down because you don't have the money? I mean, this is, you know, pet owners understand. They understand this. And so it's interesting when you do a GoFundMe. You ever hear the old expression, no good deed goes unpunished?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
I'm working tirelessly to promote this thing, and you get heat from people. One guy's like, "Why don't you just do a GoFundMe every day of the week asking people for money?" And I'm like, you know, and the guy who said it is loaded. So, you know, I don't mean loaded drunk. I mean loaded with cash. This guy would die before he'd throw $1 into the till. You know, you get heat for like GoFundMes. It's amazing. So anyway, it's a good cause. I hope people will chip in. And if they can't afford it, you know, share it, post it, click on it. It all helps. You know, get the word out.
Absolutely. So, Lex, do you have anything that you want to add to like any social media stuff or anything you want to throw out there?
No, I'm basically on a social media diet, but watch Wrestling for Charity. Live wrestling is one of the few great things left in entertainment these days that can't be algorithmically optimized.
That's a great line right there too, guys. Really, 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 really loved having you on the show tonight, and we'll have you on before we do the next big one, or maybe right after we've done the shows in Santa Rosa or whatever. But I'd like to probably have you on before the Santa Rosa show so that I can help promote it, and maybe I'll have Ava on here, and you guys can do a back and forth of your upcoming title shot, you know, that you're going to have against her. So anyway, until then, we'll see everybody next week, and thank you so much, everyone, and good night to y'all.
Night.